Welcome to Mach 10 Sports in this October 23rd, 2023 episode. Appreciate you joining us. Forgot what year. This has been a crazy week, crazy day. But welcome here on this October 23rd, 2023 episode. Guys, week 9 is upon us. From a menu standpoint, this was a light weekend in week 8. Only 4 SEC matchups, 5 in total if you include LSU Army game. Of course we do. And it's another kind of lighter matchup this week. About another 5 more SEC matchups here in week 9. Then week 10, it's going to be a heavy hitter. They released the TV schedule for week 10 to CBS doubleheader week. If you hadn't seen it, not going to tease it. We'll talk about it around the SEC. We are first coaching casualty of the season. Sam Pittman deciding to go another direction, letting go of Arkansas offensive coordinator Dan Enos. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit. I was never a big fan of that in general. Just because something worked in the past doesn't mean it'll work in the future just because it's at the same spot. Doesn't mean it will. We'll discuss that. It's another disappointing money-making weekend. I'll give it to you. Well, it's a disappointing one. Official, we are under 45% now on the season. We're at 44, specifically back-to-back losing weekends. We were 3-7 this past week. Not good enough. Not good enough. We're having a mid-season collapse. We always start off bad, but then the night we'll start off 0-3, 0-4 the past 2 weeks. I think in the morning games up in the last 2 weeks I'm combined 0-4 or no 0-8. Then at night we're a second half team. We're kind of like Alabama, but we're too big of in a hole in the second half, and we can't overcome that and outscore somebody 27-0. But let's get into it here. Let's get into it real quick. You are here to hear a little bit about around the SEC, so let's get right to it. Dan Enos fired at Arkansas. University of Arkansas, according to a statement here, has terminated Dan Enos' contract for convenience. So it'll owe him the amount of annual salary and other compensation. After he was hired this past January, the two parties agreed on a 3-year contract that would pay him $1.1 million in 2023 with a $75,000 increase each of the following 2 seasons. They also announced they're going to promote wide receiver coach Kenny Guyton's going to take over the play calling duties for the rest of the year. Probably remember him as an Ohio State quarterback under Urban Meyer, transitioned over receiver, been at Houston, younger guy, does a good job. Arkansas offense, though, with Dan Enos, they were dead last now. We're sitting dead last as we sit here on October 23rd after their performance of only putting up 3 points against Mississippi State. They're 14th. Averaging 26.5 points per game on average and only 309.5 total yards per game. Not good enough in today's modern offensive struggles. You got to score some points now to win. Even the teams that struggle and are still winning games. Alabama has an offense that will disappear a little bit at times, and Ole Miss, but they're still scoring enough to win some games. Also, in addition to the struggles, Enos had blocked multiple members of the media on social media and Twitter. Also replied to emails from students questioning his play call. And I know that can get under your skin, but you just don't reply. You don't reply. Just a bad hire from the get-go. Just felt like nothing ever really got going. I mean, there's not a strength on that offensive side of the ball. I mean, the offensive line coach Cody Kennedy, they're struggling right now up front. That's like Sam Pittman's son. So I don't think they're going to get rid of him unless admin makes him. But again, we got a long way to go a little bit. We got 5 more games to settle it. So we won't really know how that'll shake out. But for the most part, there's no speed on that side of the ball for Arkansas. None of the receivers really scary. I mean, Andrew Armstrong's okay. Isaac Tesla's okay. Nobody really scares you, though. Some of it's a personnel issue. And KJ Jefferson's regressed. Now, that's on Dan Enos, in my opinion. He's the quarterback's coach, play caller. He just put too much on his table. Sam Pittman mentioned today the players didn't really like playing for Dan Enos. I could see that. We're not going to get into the personal matters of that. But again, just not a good fit. And that goes back to Sam Pittman. That these past 2 coordinator hires that he had to hire this past season, between Travis Williams the defensive coordinator, Dan Enos is the offensive coordinator. He had to hit on both of them. Looks like he's hit on one of them, at least for a year. If you're going to give him crap about the Dan Enos hire, you got to give him credit for the Travis Williams hire because the defense is better. It's better. I wouldn't say significantly, but it's definitely better. They're playing faster, playing harder, playing more assignment sound, gap sound football on defense. Marcus Woodson and Travis Williams have done a good job over there shoring that up. Offense is just totally taking a step back. Just totally taking it. Offensive line's just gotten worse. And that's the issue. I mean, you got 2 offensive. The head coach, Sam Pittman's obviously an offensive line guy. Cody Kennedy's an offensive line guy. It's up for jobs all the time. It'll just be interesting. If they start to improve offensively over here the last 5 games. Do they just be blatant? It's a Dan Enos season. Without Dan Enos, we go win 6-7 games. We're a bowl team. I could see that happening. I don't think they're going to let go of Sam Pittman. I don't think they should either. But again, we got a long way to go. We'll review their schedule as we review that Mississippi State game for the upcoming weekend. But again, the first casualty in the SEC from a coaching carousel standpoint, Dan Enos fired after not being a full year at Arkansas, will get his full annual salary of $1.1 million. I doubt he gets the $75,000 built in. I don't know what kind of performance-enhancing contract incentives he would have surpassed this year. I mean, right now, Arkansas is 14th in the SEC, sitting at dead last, 26.5 points per game. But there you have it. He's not a fan of the hire in the first place. Him and KJ Jefferson, not from personality standpoints, but from their styles, are just oil and water. I mean, this isn't Brandon Allen. Sometimes KJ Jefferson can't process that much. You got to go with the Kendall Briles system where it's a one read, half side, half field read. If it's not there, take off. I mean, you can't put too much processing on this kid's plate because he still had to refine some of his mechanical issues, his footwork. He had to get his feet and arm working in sync. And then you throw in another system that's a lot to process. No bueno. The SEC announces its Week 10 TV schedule. Share it for you on the screen here. It's the best weekend of the year probably coming up, Week 10. But they announced it. Right here. Here we go. So here we go. The Week 10 schedule for November 4th. The ESPN 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone game. Texas A&M at Ole Miss. They're getting the morning kickoff there. That's going to be a big one for Jimbo Fisher. I mean, he's got to win this week in South Carolina, but that's the one I've heard that the donors think that's one that's circled, that he needs to go at least show some improvement in that one. Because A&M, whether they want to believe it, they still think they're better than Ole Miss. And with the resources and stuff, they should be. On ESPN 2 at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone. Arkansas at Florida. 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN 2. Razorbacks head to the Swamp. Another noon one on ESPN U. 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone. Battle of the Gamecocks here. Jacksonville State and Rich Rodriguez head to Columbia, South Carolina. Gamecock on Gamecock crime here, baby. Then we got UConn, again, another 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone game. UConn at Tennessee on the SEC Network. This is a CBS doubleheader week, so this is the first matchup of the CBS doubleheader. They'll have the JV team calling this one. Missouri at Georgia, which should be for first place in the East. That's the 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kick. You got another 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone kick. Hugh Freeze and the boys trying to go get them a road SEC win at Vanderbilt in the Music City. That'll be on the SEC Network. Then you got your SEC Network night game with Cole Kubelik, Jordan Rogers, Tom Hart. That'll be Kentucky at Mississippi State. Kentucky heading to Starkville, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone. And then the night one. Remember, this is the CBS's last year broadcasting the SEC games. The last CBS SEC doubleheader couldn't go out a better way. LSU, Alabama, 6:45 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on CBS. I mean, it's been a big decade, been 12, 13-year rivalry, 15-year rivalry, if you want to go all the way back. This rivalry in the SEC, LSU, Alabama, kind of took the SEC to the next level over the past 15 years. Whether you want to call it as Nick Saban coming to the SEC, definitely had a lot to do with it. But these two teams are usually fighting for first place in the West, national title playoff implications on the blind. It'll be great for them to be the last CBS doubleheader game of the CBS SEC era. But that is the Week 10, November 14th schedule. Heading around the league, I mentioned some super secret scrimmages around college basketball. I say super secret scrimmage because the coaches, now they're starting to talk to the media a little bit. They can't even address these scrimmages because it's not an official deal. I was reading about it, the NCAA. You can't talk about it because it's not an official game. So, like, we get these box scores and stuff, and I feel bad for these media guys who go to the Chris Beard, NATO, Derek Musselman, Matt McMahon from LSU press conferences, and they want to. These media members haven't seen really the team at all, but they do see some of the results in these scrimmages. They want to ask questions like Ole Miss, how they do against Kelvin Sampson in Houston. I know they lost by 4. We'll go over that in just a minute. But what the team look like, they can't ask because the coach can't address it or it's a violation. How dumb is that? But here's some scores across college basketball. Georgia looks like they beat NC State 82-72 in a secret scrimmage. Ole Miss dropped one to Houston by 4 in Baton Rouge on Saturday. Not a lot of details. All I got was Musa Cisse, the big center, did not play for Ole Miss. South Carolina lost a scrimmage to VCU on Saturday to the Rams, supposedly a buzzer beater by VCU. LSU dropped a scrimmage to Tulsa 83-82. And Florida looked pretty good in a scrimmage versus Miami where they won 91-89. And then Alabama played TCU in a scrimmage where they lost by 6. But again, Alabama scrimmage TCU last year, lost by 30. Alabama ended up as the number 1 overall seed heading into the NCAA tournament. So a pretty in-depth box score came out about Alabama. Alabama had a lot of their starters out. Mark Sears was out. Muhammad Wagi, the West Virginia transfer, was out. And a couple other guys, some of the true freshmen. Lost by 6, heard Alabama was up 6 late. These scrimmages don't take much into this. I'm telling you, again, Alabama lost to TCU last year by 30. They had a couple guys out. These coaches mix it up a little bit with different matchups. There's probably some like, hey, we want to play a matchup zone here. Will y'all play a matchup zone? Let us get a couple looks, and we'll switch vice versa on what you need to get some looks at. It goes a little bit like that, so don't take it for granted. Like the LSU 83-82 loss to Tulsa. Probably not good, but don't look too in-depth into it. But again, just some SEC basketball scores across. Georgia beats NC State. Ole Miss dropped a close one to Houston. Should be somewhat good news for Ole Miss fans and Chris Beard. South Carolina dropped a scrimmage to VCU. LSU dropped one to Tulsa. Florida, apparently the team that kind of looked pretty good against a preseason top 25 team, Miami, got the 91-89 win. And Alabama dropped a close one to TCU. Should be 2 tournament teams heading in. But again, don't look too much into it. Again, like I told you, Alabama lost by 30 last year in one of these things and ended up being the number 1 overall team in the country at the end of the year. But let's get into it. Week 8 review in the SEC. We had 4 SEC matchups, 5 matchups across the board. Let's get to it. The big one, Alabama with a dominating second half to beat Tennessee, 34-20. For Alabama, it's an old cliche, but it fits here very well. A tale of 2 halves. The second half of this game was by far the best Alabama has looked so far this year. A couple of reasons why I think that was. Just going back, reviewing the film. Incorporated Jalen Milroe in the run game in the second half. And I'm going to pull up some of the film here. This is what I want to show you. This stuff I think Alabama needs. They got a bye week coming up. They need to continue experimenting with this. This is the kind of stuff they need to continue to experiment with. Here it is, the situation. Alabama's kind of on their run right now, still trailing Tennessee 20-17, 4:27 left in the half. 1st and 10. Show it to you right here. Alabama's probably going to use a little bit of some split zone here, but look how they run Jalen Milroe here off the tackle. It's designed. It's just a nice scheme, man. Amari Niblack coming in motion as the sniffer, makes a block. I feel like if you can keep Jalen Milroe in this, even when he doesn't give it, it makes the defense have to account for him, which just opens up some more holes in between the tackles for running backs like Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, J.M. Miller, Justice Haynes, guys like that when they get the rock. Little split zone there. If Alabama can start honing in on this, they got a week to get it right. Still need to figure out who they are on offense. You've seen little spurts of this, but it didn't use consistently. I think this was something I was going back to that I was like, man, if they could use that consistently, get for a feel, even if he doesn't get many yards on it at times, 2 or 3, it keeps defenses honest in the box so they can't just sell out on the running back. So I just wanted to bring that up. Some split zone there with our guy. Maury Niblack as the center. But like I said, it really wasn't the accumulated yards. It forced Tennessee's front, their linebackers, to respect Milroe in the design run. Keyword being design, like I said. Then on the other side of the ball in the second half, the defense, Terry and Arnold went out with a slight minor concussion. Throw in Louisiana transfer Trey Amos, who's played some this year but not in a primary role, was forced in the second half. Had a fantastic second half with a couple pass breakups. The Tide D buckled down in the red zone. Tennessee only scored touchdowns on 1 of their 4 red zone appearances. They got 2 they scored on 3 out of their 4 red zone appearances, 2 field goals, 1 touchdown, and then a turnover on downs. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I told you going into the game, Tennessee has struggled to score touchdowns in the red zone. I even went back and talked about that for the A&M game. You can put as many rushing yards as you want up on the ground between the 20s. If you get stopped in the red zone, it really doesn't matter in today's football. You got to cash in on that. Alabama's had their issues with that as well. But Tommy Rees, going back to the offense, mixed up the run game in the second half, ran some split zone, some duo. Also, give right tackle J.C. Latham a ton of credit. He had a lot of one-on-ones with an outstanding pass rusher from Tennessee, James Pierce, and he held his own for the most part. Held his own except for the one sack, strip fumble by James Pierce, but for the most part, he held up against one of the league's best pass rushers. Some issues, though, from Alabama, just to point out before we go to Tennessee. Kool-Aid McKinstry, he's got to get better about just fielding punts. He's giving up way too much field position. Like, Alabama's up 14, Tennessee punts, and he doesn't fair catch it. It rolls like the 2. If he just fair catches it, the game's probably over. Now, nothing happened, but a game against an offense like LSU, who's going to put up points, field position is going to matter. He's got to work on that. Or it looks like he didn't really have much confidence, but that could kill you in a game down the line. And then Alabama's just got to start faster. They got to figure out how to come out starting fast. I mean, they go consecutive 3-and-outs to start games like it's nobody's business. Second half, they come out like a totally different team. Can they put together a complete game? I don't know, but they do have to start faster. I think it's got to start against LSU in 2 weeks. But moving to Tennessee, the Vols didn't finish the middle 8, man. And what I'm talking about, the middle 8 of the game, the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half. Let me repeat that. The last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half. After converting a big interception right before the half, Tennessee converted the third down, threw a touchdown to Castle, the tight end, in the second half. Tennessee got sacked in the half. They're up 13, feeling good. 20 to 7 at half, feeling good. And then right out of the gate, they give up an explosive run on first down to Jace McClellan. And then 2 plays later, a touchdown to Isaiah Bond. Just gave up the total swing momentum of the game for Tennessee. But again, middle 8, a very underrated stat, but it does tell you who wins the football game. Tennessee had it in the grasp of his hands, let it go first few drives in the second half. Joe Milton will continue to receive criticism for his second half play, but he's a big reason why Tennessee was up 13 at the half. Call me crazy. Some people are going to say it was the Orange Bowl last year. This game is a lot more important. Regular season game. I think this was Joe Milton's best game in his Tennessee career. Call me crazy. I think it was. Kept him in it, 16 for 22, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, did he miss some stuff in the second half? Sure. Could he have taken off a little more? Sure, but he's gotten better about that. He's gotten more comfortable. My concern was Josh Heupel. This decision to go for it on 4th and 1 from his own 47 with 6:47 left in the half, and they were up. I mean, what are you doing, man? Just punt it, play field position. Alabama's a score from far team. They're not driving on the field on you, man. You had the lead. It was like he pressed panic. And I saw someone asked him in his press conference, like, well, I felt we had to get some momentum back. There's 2 ways to break this down. You can be against the decision to go for 4th down, or you could be for it and just not like the play call. I think both things can be true there. I didn't like either. I see some people out there, I like the call, didn't like the play call. I think that's fair. But again, Tennessee just never recovered from that. Alabama took that momentum and just swung with it. Obviously, Chris Braswell got Joe Milton from behind, strip fumble. Jihad Campbell picked it up, ran it for a touchdown. And then before we move on here, where was Tennessee's defense in the second half? They played fine. They did for the most part really well in the first half. But I know everything was spiraling out of control in the second half, especially at the beginning. Offense wasn't clicking. Your coach is going for it in poor situations. But great teams, the defense picks up, carries them when the offense is struggling. Someone on defense makes a play like Chris Braswell did for Alabama in a big situation. Where was James Pierce? Where was Tyler Barron? Someone's got to make a play. That's what really good teams do. Good teams just kind of sit back and kind of just let things come to them. Great teams go and make plays. But where do we go for here for both teams? Alabama now 6-1, 5-0 in the SEC, heading into the bye week before an SEC West winner-take-all in Tuscaloosa. Let me pull up the schedule here for you. Here we go. Alabama remaining schedule. Like I said, 6-1, 5-0 in conference, heading to a bye week this week before their big showdown against LSU for first place in the SEC West. And then they'll go at Kentucky the next week, get Chattanooga at home, and head to the Plains to face Auburn for the Iron Bowl. I mean, Alabama, as good a shape as you could have hoped for after that Texas game. They've gotten better each week, just they have to start faster, and can they play a complete game? They got a week to get it together, work on themselves, figure out some of their offensive stuff. I think they have to factor Jalen Milroe into the running game. We'll see from where they go from there. But then let's also, what about Tennessee? Where does Tennessee go from here? Pulling up the schedule here for the Vols. As you can see, Tennessee 5-2. They take on 2 conference losses now, 2 losses at Florida, at Alabama. Just the road struggles continue. Not mathematically out of the SEC East race, but nice to be cheering for Georgia to lose another game. But Tennessee can tie that up with a win at home against Georgia in a couple of weeks. But let's look at it. They go at Kentucky this week. It's a 6 o'clock ESPN night game. They get UConn at home the next week. Go at Missouri. then get Georgia at home and get Vanderbilt at home to end the season for the Vols. It's a big one this week against Kentucky. We'll preview it a little bit later. It's a must-win for them, though. They got to get over those road wins. They won in Lexington 2 years ago. Tennessee usually beats Kentucky. I mean, that's a pretty normal thing. But can they bounce back from the epic second-half collapse? It's going to be tough to come back from. How does Kentucky come out? They're coming off a bye week. It's a must-win for Tennessee, though, and it's probably a must-win for Kentucky. Who wants to go be in the thick of this SEC East race? Both teams probably kind of out of it, especially Kentucky. They already lost to Georgia. Tennessee's still a little bit more in it, but still a must-win for both teams as we head into that. My only concern right now for Tennessee is is taking that next step as a program, but their continued road woes just leave a lot to be desired. Until Tennessee can start bringing the show on the road and playing a complete game on the road, they're just going to continue to be an 8-9 win regular season program team. Another massive opportunity, like I said, this next week in Lexington. They got to figure out a way to get it done in the Bluegrass State this upcoming Saturday. Next, Missouri gets the 34-12 win over South Carolina, leading us off with Missouri. Missouri just once again keeps the Mayor's Cup in Columbia, Missouri. Remember, this is a trophy game. Missouri, a good football team. Not great, but a good football team. Just a well-rounded football team. Do they have some weaknesses that can be exploited? Absolutely, for sure. Everyone has them, except I don't know about Michigan because they haven't played anybody yet. But everybody else I've watched has some holes. The Missouri energy was awesome right out of the gate. It's the reason they started the game on a 24-0 run. Energy, to me, this past week was a concern to me. Bye week this week. They're on a bye week this week. They saw that on the horizon. After a couple big wins, Kansas State, Kentucky on the road, playing LSU close, 8 straight weeks of football and anyone's a lot. It concerned me, but they brought it. But South Carolina, give Missouri credit for adjusting here. South Carolina came out in a cover 2 shell defensively, and Kirby Moore, Missouri, just decided to adjust and decided to run the football down South Carolina's throat. While everybody knows South Carolina is the worst pass defense in the league, 130th to be exact, Missouri elected to go with what the defense was giving them. Offense is just extremely efficient for the Tiger right now. It's impressive. Also, they're just finding their own grass in place. What I mean by that, they're just creating their own open seams. Like I said, they're taking what the defense is giving them, but they're also taking it and creating it as well. I mean, they're as deep as I've seen a Missouri team in a very long time. Since probably 2013. I mean, Armand Mimbo, the offensive tackle, I remember recruiting him out of high school from Lee Summit North. Top 3 tackle in this league, in my opinion. Top 3 offensive tackle in this league, in my opinion. They're deep across the offensive line. They're 8-9 deep. They're 7-8 deep on the defensive line. I mean, no, just wreckers, but they're deep. Kind of like Ole Miss's defensive line. No real NFL dudes, but they're deeper. They have more bodies than they've had. They got running back depth. They roll 3 deep at linebacker. They have pieces on the back end. I'm serious. When they go to Athens in a couple of weeks, I know they're playing for the SEC East, but in my opinion, they're playing with house money. They should come out there, play loose, work on themselves this week, start working on Georgia on the back half of the week. Play loose, guys. You really have nothing to lose. And people are like, well, they have the SEC East to lose. Yeah, no one expects them to go win that. So go play loose in that game. That's what I would tell Eli Drinkowitz. But moving to the bad news, guys. South Carolina. Where do you go from here? Pretty much the same things I complimented Missouri on in that segment just a minute ago. South Carolina did not do. They were essentially no shows, brought no energy, added more injuries on a thin roster already. Who knows with Xavier Legette? He's questionable right now, along with 2 offensive linemen added to the injury list. Tree Babalade and Trevon Ball, they're both out too. They got hurt against Missouri this past week. It's the same thing every week. But let's be honest with ourselves here. Let's just be honest for a quick second. This was going to be a step backwards for the program after the departures to the portal and the injuries this team had taken on after last year and through this year as well. It's not good when you have to hope Missouri has a letdown game if you're South Carolina for you to have a chance to end a 4-game losing streak to this team. That's no offense to Missouri. But South Carolina shouldn't have to be like, we got to hope they don't play their best game or we have no shot. No, it shouldn't be like that. And some of that, I'm getting off topic here, that's on Ray Tanner, the AD. He's an old school baseball coach. Used to be the baseball coach that really started that program in South Carolina. But he's one of the few ADs that is just not in the SEC that is not buying into name, image, and likeness. For you acronym people, NIL. He's the only AD in the SEC that has not publicly supported it. If Ole Miss can have a successful NIL corporation, enterprise, whatever you want to call it, so can South Carolina, but it's just not being led correctly. Can South Carolina do a better job as coaches putting players in successful situations? Absolutely. I mean, I never see any adjustments in the second half. I mean, I really don't. I never see any defensive adjustments. Their inside linebackers are very underwhelming to me. And then Clayton White, the same defensive coordinator who coaches the inside linebackers. There's just no adjustments made. They are what they are. He's a nice guy here, but it's a scoreboard business, and you're not getting it done, man. You're either getting torched through the air, you're 130th in pass defense, or teams are just running right at you when you're in a cover 2 shell. That's an issue. Just not a lot of things to build on if you're from South Carolina. It doesn't get any easier. Let's pull up the South Carolina schedule here. It doesn't get any easier. They get to College Station this week. They ain't had much success against Texas A&M since they've been in the SEC. But here come the Gamecocks, 2-5, 1-4 in the SEC. Remaining games, they go at A&M this week, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Then the Battle of the Gamecocks I mentioned at home, Vandy at home, Kentucky at home, and Clemson. So they're about to have a lot of home. This is their last road game of the year coming up this weekend at A&M. 4 straight at home to end the year. Only got 2 wins so far. Do they get bowl eligible? You see them taking 4 out of the last 5. I don't think they win this week. They got to get Jacksonville State and Vandy. There's 4. And they'd have to go beat Kentucky and Clemson at home. I mean, it's not impossible. Crazier things that happen. Just don't see it getting done. Again, everybody, if you're realistic, thought South Carolina would take a step back this year. They lost too much from a personnel standpoint. They have no running back depth. Their best running back transferred to USC and Marshawn Lloyd. It's just NIL and that university's got to step up and be willing to pony up instead of stop asking their biggest donors for facility upgrades. They have the facilities. They have to start. They lost too much. Like I keep saying, I don't want to start this thing. We're reviewing this game. It's a combination of NIL not being there for South Carolina and Shane Beamer hiring coaches that are not ready to be SEC level coaches. If you look at his first staff he hired, it wasn't a great staff. It's not really a great staff and not really a great recruiting staff either. I think they do a good job evaluating from a personnel department. I think Taylor Edwards does a really good job there. But the coaches are low-hanging fruit guys. They're not going to get the big guys that Georgia, Florida, Clemson, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, and those guys are getting. But the money's there. They have the opportunity. They're just allocating it in the wrong direction. But again, South Carolina's in big trouble right now. They got to go win 4 of their last 5. If I'm being honest, I don't see them getting it done. Jumping over to Missouri. Missouri is currently 7-1, 3-1 in the conference, heading in to their bye week. Let's pull up the remaining Missouri Tigers schedule for you. So like I said, 7-1, 3-1 headed. So they got a bye week, then at Georgia, Tennessee at home, Florida at home, and at Arkansas. I mean, God, I think a 9-1 season would be incredible for them. I mean, probably lost to Georgia. If they could get Tennessee at home, that's 8. And I think they get one of the last 2, if not both. I mean, Florida coming to their place November 18th. It'll be cold in Columbia, Missouri. Those Florida boys don't like to play in the cold weather. I chalk that up as a loss for Florida going into the year, as a win for Missouri. But Missouri just need to get a little healthy, get off your feet a little bit. I saw Drake they were off yesterday and today. Start focusing on Georgia the back half. There's a lot in front of you if you're a Missouri Tiger fan and you're a part of that program right now. A lot of things to be excited about. A chance to go be in the driver's seat for the SEC East after November 4th. Big opportunity there for Missouri. A lot in front of them. Heading on to the next one, Ole Miss makes a few plays late to pull away from Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium to get a 28-21 win. Hey, a win's a win if you're Ole Miss in this tough environment. It wasn't pretty at times. I don't even think the biggest Ole Miss homer in the world would tell you it was. But your defense played well and your offense made plays when they had to. The run game was consistently there, and they did not have to do a lot in the passing game to move the ball. I mean, Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot a lot of times in the first half. They really did. Field goal at the end of the half. Holder drops a snap. Those interception is one of the 2 turnovers. But I will say this. In the run game, I think the run game's improved a lot because of Caden Prescorn at the tight end position. Big reason why they've gotten that run game going consistently. Also, add in Ulysses Bentley has really started to come on. I mean, if you look at the box score, he only had 52 yards, but the ability of him and Quinshon Judkins to relieve each other consistently and keep each other fresh is massive. That's why I think Quinshon Judkins started off a little slow, along with the offensive line and Caden Prescorn being out. Because last year he had Zach Evans, a guy who got drafted, playing for the LA Rams right now. Took a load off of him. It was a 5-star player out of high school. But again, Ole Miss is some of those forgotten teams in college football right now, sitting at 6-1, 3-1. I mean, They don't control their own destiny because they need Alabama to lose twice, but they kind of do. I mean, what if they finish 11-1 and go win at Athens? I'm not saying that. They still got a lot to play for. A lot to play for. They're really not talked about a lot because they've been winning a little ugly at times against Arkansas in this past week at Auburn. But for them to do that, the offense cannot go cold like it has at times. They were 10 for 11 on third down. That's not good. That's not going to beat a good team. But when they needed to score late to put the game away at the end of the third, their next series to start the fourth, they did. And that's what good teams do. While the defense still has its issues at times between tackling, Pete Golden's still only rushing 2 when it's 3rd and 4th and longs. They're an improved defense, and I think that's because they got a lot of older guys on that defense across the board. I was reviewing that game last night and just going through the roster again. Like, God, man, they're going to go supplement through the portal again. They had so many senior transfers. But a lot of guys that have played football. Last year, it didn't work for them doing that. This year, it has. Some of that, give Pete Golden credit. And I think from an Alabama-Ole Miss standpoint with Pete Golden, both teams, both parties are having success. Alabama's having a hell of a lot of success with Kevin Steele as DC. Pete Golden found a place here in Oxford, feels comfortable, has improved the Ole Miss D. They appreciate him. But again, older guys in the portal will help. Last year, that was not the case. Moving to Auburn, what is there to say about the Auburn offense? I mean, what is the biggest strength of this offense? Jarquez Hunter. That's really about it. I mean, if Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery don't get things figured out, Auburn can miss a bowl game for a second straight season. Now, I will say, people are on Hugh Freeze. He looks stressed, but he hasn't lost a game no one thought he wouldn't. I mean, he lost to Georgia. They were supposed to lose that game. They lost at LSU. They were supposed to lose that game. Lost at A&M. They were supposed to lose that game. They lost to Ole Miss. They were supposed to lose that game. His games to get to 6 to 7 wins are here on the back end, minus probably Alabama. But again, it's at Jordan Hare. Alabama's played close games against average to bad Auburn teams before there. But a little positive news here. Auburn did score 21 points, which is the most they've scored on a Power 5 opponent, Power 5 competition this year so far. The bad is, outside of Jarquez Hunter's 53-yard touchdown, Auburn ran the ball 37 times for 110 yards, which only averaged 2.9 yards a carry. It's not good. And I think Hunter needs to touch the ball more. He only had 18 total touchdowns, 15 rushing attempts, caught 3 passes, but he needs more, man. He needs to be in the 25 range, in my opinion. He's your best player. You got to let him touch the ball. I mean, Auburn only managed 5 big plays in the game, which, in my opinion, are runs of 10-plus yards and passes of 15-plus yards. That's how I consider big plays. They only had 5. Auburn had 6 3-and-outs, including a 7-drive sequence I'm reading right now in the middle of the game where the Tigers managed only 30 total yards on 21 plays. It's not good. Auburn's offense is so limited from a explosive play standpoint. I mean, Ole Miss had 14 plays that would be considered explosive plays. Remember, 10-yard run, 15-yard pass. Ole Miss had 14 of those. Auburn only had 5. I mean, there's no vertical game. I mean, you just keep everything in front of you, make tackles in front of you, stop the run, load the box. That's it. I mean, none of their receivers scare you. None of Auburn's receivers scare you. I mean, Jay Fair, Shane Hooks. I mean, I always came to Brown in high school, but he didn't came on either. The Burton kid from Ohio State, he's okay. They just don't really have a lot of guys. That was probably a little overrated position coming to the year for them. Defensively, they started off slow, but for most of the night, Auburn's defense played well enough to give its offense a chance to win the game, especially at home. I mean, during 8 drives in the middle of the game, Auburn held the Ole Miss offense to 5 plays or less. I mean, for what you're asking them to play that many plays and their offense is doing nothing, that's not bad. Now, there were some big holes that were opening up on the Auburn front, but overall, they held Ole Miss's offense to 5.7 yards per play. It's not terrible. But where does the offense, just going back to that, where does it go from here? A lot of questions to answer. Or is it more tempo? Do they stop rotating quarterbacks? Sounds like Hugh Freeze doesn't even know. Me, it's to the point now you go with Robbie Ashford. He gives you the best chance to win football games. Is he going to have mistakes? Hell yeah, he is. Hell yeah, he is. Is he going to have some massive turnovers? Yeah. But I think he gives you the highest ceiling with this team overall. I think he gives your team the best shot to go win football games on Saturday. But where do we go from here? Let's look at the Ole Miss schedule. Ole Miss is currently 6-1, 3-1 in the SEC. Pulling up their schedule for you right now. So like I said, 6-1, 3-1 in conference. They get Vanderbilt at home this week. Then a big one, in my opinion, A&M at home. That's big for both teams. Jimbo, just from his program perspective, has got to win it. And Ole Miss to really feel like, wow, we're going to go into Athens with 1 loss and have a real shot here. Then at Georgia, like I just mentioned, ULM at home, and then at Mississippi State. I mean, You really can't see Ole Miss losing more than 2 games right now to finish 9-3, which would be another fantastic year for Lane Kiffin in year 4. But again, the Rebs feel pretty good. They don't control their own destiny. They still need Alabama to lose 2 games. But, I mean, they beat Vanderbilt, beat A&M, back-to-back home games these next 2 weeks. They're going to roll into Athens with a lot of confidence and with only 1 loss. And Georgia will have a mean streak coming up, a lot tougher than we thought at the beginning of the year because they would be going off Missouri, Georgia, and at Tennessee. Against 3 solid opponents right there. That is the Ole Miss schedule right there. Let's get to Auburn, who's currently 3-4, 0-4 in the league right now, with Mississippi State coming to town this upcoming week. Share the Auburn Tiger schedule. And again, like I said, Hugh Freeze hasn't lost anybody he hadn't supposed to yet. So it's not time to push the panic button. Anybody that's telling you it is that's very naive and premature. But again, they get Mississippi State at home this week, which is a must-win for both Mississippi State and Auburn. They both need it. Very similar to Mississippi State, Arkansas this past week. Both teams needed it. Then Auburn will head to Music City, face Vanderbilt on November 4th, go at Arkansas, New Mexico State at home, and then host Alabama for the Iron Bowl on November 25th. I mean, they could win their next 4, which is doable. I mean, that's 7 wins heading into the Iron Bowl. That's what I said they'd be having going in. Again, they hadn't lost anybody. Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. Everybody thought they'd lose that game. They were double-digit underdogs in every one of them except Ole Miss, I think. And Auburn, Auburn too. LSU too. Double-digit underdogs to A&M, Georgia, LSU, 6.5 to Ole Miss. They just got to get these next 4, I think. At least 3 out of 4. Have 6 wins rolling into the Iron Bowl, 7 wins. You never know that. But against Auburn's upcoming schedule, heading into that. And then the last conference game of the week, Mississippi State gets by Arkansas. If you can hear it, in a great baseball game. We got Major League Baseball playoff games going on right now. But this wasn't a baseball game. This wasn't a scrimmage at Ballham Stadium. This was a football score, 7-3 in Fayetteville. This was the lowest scoring SEC game in the last 15 years. This felt like the 2008 Auburn-Mississippi State game, which I happened to be at, the 3-2 game. No one could get anything going. This was a must-win for both teams, and Mississippi State probably didn't feel great leaving the stadium. They probably did, and road SEC wins should never be underrated or not appreciated. Couldn't feel awesome. It couldn't have felt awesome, though. But let's start off with Arkansas. Again, offensive coordinator Dan Enos was fired on Sunday, promoted Kenny Guyton. But where do they go from here? The offense has had no answers all year, and KJ Jefferson has regressed. Every offense that played Mississippi State this year so far has had success against them either on the ground or through the air. The safeties are not very good right now. People have been taking advantage of that. Arkansas couldn't. Arkansas could not. But give Arkansas their defense credit. Like I said, if you're going to bash Sam Pittman for the Dan Enos hire when he had 2 big coordinator hires heading into this season, got to give him credit for the Travis Williams, Marcus Woodson hire. I thought they would be a little worse than they are. I thought they'd be improved just because I've been with Travis Williams at Auburn and UCF, and his teams play hard. They play with a chip on their shoulder. I figured they'd be better, and he puts the work in to put his players in a place to be successful. Players love playing for him. So you got to give Sam Pittman credit from that standpoint if you're going to give him the heat on Dan Enos. But he's batting 1 for 2 right now. I know it was a limited state defense, but the Arkansas defense, they kept them in the game. Or I should say, I know it was a limited state offense, but Arkansas's defense kept them in this game. Got to give them credit there. That's the bright spot. The offense is bad. They're heading into a bye week. Going to try to get their stuff figured out with Kenny Guyton to go try to have a pretty good back half of the season. Let's see where it goes. I don't think they get rid of Sam Pittman, but you don't really know. You don't ever really know with how these last 5 games figure. Do they get to a bowl game? Probably not. We'll look at the schedule in just a minute. But moving to Mississippi State, who feels just a little bit better about this game. I mean, give Mississippi State's defense and Bookie Watson a phenomenal credit. Bookie Watson won SEC Defensive Player of the Week. Very active Mississippi State defensive front. Throw in Jet Johnson in that conversation as well. Fantastic performance by the defense. Mike Wright, quarterback, the Vanderbilt transfer in his first start at Mississippi State. He wasn't great, but he stayed the course and had some competitive advantage, competitive edge to him. Only finished 8 for 12, 85 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I mean, he's not getting invited to New York this year. It's not what I'm saying. But he didn't get down when the first play from the scrimmage was an interception. And I didn't hate the game plan by Kevin Barbie. They stayed within Mike Wright's strings. But give Arkansas's D credit. They're improved. They're a solid front too. And, I mean, with Mike Wright, you're going to be a little limited. But Mississippi State's got to start getting guys like Tolu Griffin their best wide receiver more touches, either on jet sweeps or what. Screens, get him the ball more. Arkansas's offensive issues are well documented, and State exploited them. Now, I know some Mississippi State fans are not fired up about the offense and came in with minimal expectations in this game and didn't even meet those, let's be honest. I get it, but a win in this league, especially on the road, and especially a must-win situation for both of y'all. You went to a team's house in a situation where their back was against the wall and you won. You won. Do you have issues on offense? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that offensive performance doesn't get it done probably at Auburn this week. It probably really doesn't. You have some stuff to improve on, but you know what? Your team stuck it out when they faced a lot of adversity heading into the week with your backup quarterback. And even throughout the game, I mean, he threw an interception his first pass. You won the football game. Just go improve this week. See what you do on the Plains in a winnable game against Auburn. Where do we go from here? Arkansas is 2-6, 0-5 in the league. Let me show you their schedule. Here we go. I mean, the Hogs only got 2 wins, 0-5 in the league. They're in to win out. They got heading into a bye week this week. They don't play. Then they go at Florida. Remember that kick time's announced, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN2. Then they get Auburn at home, FIU at home, and then Missouri at home. So a lot of home games coming up after them being gone for that month. I don't see them winning all 4, though. I hate to be pessimistic, but I just don't. I mean, at Florida, Auburn at home. I mean, they're all 4 winnable potentially. But I just don't see them winning all 4, not with the way they're playing on offense right now. And I don't think just a firing of the coordinator is an issue. I mean, they have offensive line issues. Receivers aren't really – there's not a lot of speed. And I don't think KJ Jefferson just flicks a switch unless they simplify the offensive plan. But still, I don't know if that'll be enough to win all 4 games. Then defense starts racking up some injuries because they're not deep. But that's the Arkansas schedule heading in to their bye week, again, as they sit 2-6, 0-5. And heading to Mississippi State, let's look at that schedule. Mississippi State is 4-3 right now, 1-3 in the league. Let's take you to it. Mississippi State, they go at Auburn this week. That's a game they can get. They need to be. They should be riding in with some confidence. It's a 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone SEC Network game. They can sneak in. Then Kentucky at home, at A&M, Southern Miss at home, and Ole Miss. The only game I would say is a for sure win on the left on the schedule is Southern Miss. State, they got 4 wins. They need 2 more. They're probably going to get Southern Miss. If they win this week, they're going bowling. They get one of Kentucky or Auburn, they're going bowling. I don't think they beat Texas A&M on the road in Kyle Field, and I don't think they beat Ole Miss at home. Crazier things have happened in the Egg Bowl, but I don't see it. This week in Kentucky at home are massive for them to go to a bowl game because they're going to get Southern Miss, but they got to split those 2. But again, massive win. Wasn't pretty, but you're going to take an SEC road win every day of the week. And it's that time, guys. It's week 9 SEC power rankings. Let me share the screen. Let me share the graphic for you. Here it is, the week 9. Let's give our graphics girl credit. Jordan Ferrier, she's a student at Auburn, does a fantastic job giving us our weekly graphics, whether it's power rankings, our gambling picks, key matchups, SEC picks. That's all her. She does a fantastic job. But here it is, starting number 1, Georgia. Obviously, didn't play this week, so I don't think they're moving. I still get some flack for this. LSU right now at number 2, Alabama 3. Some people think it should be Alabama at 2. I think on a neutral field right now, with Alabama's inability to come out, start, and play a complete game. And remember, this is all key on being in a neutral field. I know it's in Tuscaloosa. Right now, I'd probably take Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and that's where the game's going to be played. But on a neutral field, I think LSU may go out and score Alabama. Don't feel 100% confident in that, but LSU has enough athletes on defense to hold Alabama at times. But I got LSU at 2, Alabama at 3, Missouri coming in playing really good football. Not a national title team, but a complete team coming in at number 4. Ole Miss, they'll disappear a little bit like Alabama at times on offense, but I think they come in at number 5. They're in a good spot heading into Vanderbilt and getting A&M at home. They need to get both these before they head to Athens. Tennessee played a great first half, best first half of the year, best half of football for Tennessee of the year, and probably matched it in the second half of their worst half of the year. Coming in at 6, though, and right after them, a team Tennessee snuck by 2 weeks ago, Texas A&M. Got a couple of big matchups coming up. They were off this past week. Got to get South Carolina at home and got to go figure out how to beat Ole Miss in Oxford in 2 weeks. Florida had a bye week for their matchup against Georgia this week in Jacksonville. They come in at 8. Kentucky at 9. I know Kentucky beat Florida, but again, neutral field right now. Give me the Gators. 10th, South Carolina. It's probably a little generous. Sometimes I want to move Auburn there from 11 to 10, but South Carolina, no real strengths outside of Spencer Rattler. No real strengths outside of Spencer Rattler. Auburn coming in at 11th. What do they do from offense? I think you got to go Robbie Ashford. Gives you the best shot to win, but your defense just ultimately just gets too tired, breaks down in the second half. Offense just has no vertical game at all. Struggle to stretch the field. 12th, Mississippi State. Hey, road win's a road win. They still got a lot to work on. They got a big opportunity this week in Auburn. They could go get a massive win that would do a lot for their bowl chances. 13th, Arkansas. You just fired your offensive coordinator. The only team worse thing is Vanderbilt. Arkansas's got a lot of issues. Don't really see them getting to a bowl game, but hey, they got a week to get it figured out. They're on a bye week this week. And then Vanderbilt, they're on a bye week this past week, coming in at 14th. That is the Week 9 SEC power rankings. And then next, we are going to preview Week 9 for you just real quick. Just a brief preview of Week 9. Pull up the schedule. Again, a little bit more on the lighter slate like it was this past week. These are the 2 weeks because everybody's kind of within bye weeks. So you got 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone, South Carolina at Texas A&M on ESPN. I mean, South Carolina, Xavier Legette's probably out. They got a couple offensive linemen, like I mentioned, out. Texas A&M should win this. If Jimbo Fisher loses this, it's over for him. I'll say that right now. A&M should get this win, though, before they get ready for a big one in Oxford next week. Then the world's largest cocktail party, like I always call it, 2:30 p.m. on CBS, Georgia at Florida. Does Florida have a shot to stay within it? 14.5. And sorry, I should have told you the line for the Texas A&M game. Texas A&M at home against South Carolina, currently a 14-point favorite. Georgia currently a 14.5-point favorite in Jacksonville this week. I can see Florida hanging within 14.5. I don't think they're ready to go win this game yet. I see them staying within 14.5, though. How do both teams coming off the bye week? How do both teams come off that bye week? Mississippi State at Auburn. That's the SEC Network game at 2:30. It's a big one for both teams. Big opportunity for Mississippi State to go build off a road win in Arkansas this past week. Take that on the road to the Plains. Auburn, they have to have this. This is one of those. This will be a game. Hugh Freeze, people will be on him if he loses this. It doesn't feel good right now. They lost 4 straight, but again, they were supposed to lose those games. No one predicted them to win those games. But this one, people will be on you. Hugh Freeze has it. He even going back to Arkansas State, Ole Miss, and Liberty, he loses a game once a year. He probably shouldn't. Is this it this year? It does not need to be, though. You talk about Hugh Freeze looking stressed the last 4 weeks. Will be extremely stressed if he's just takes a loss to Mississippi State at his Monday press conference next week. Then we got 6 p.m. Central Standard Time kickoff. Tennessee at Kentucky on ESPN. Tennessee needs this one. They need it. Kentucky needs it coming off a bye week. How does Tennessee recover on the road after a disappointing second half, after blowing a 13-point halftime lead? Can Tennessee end those road woes? Can Joe Milton continue to build off success? Because all wasn't bad. The first half was really good for Tennessee. Can they build off that? Kentucky, can they get anything going offensively? Can Liam Cohen, Devin Leary, and the guys get something going off a bye week against a good Tennessee defense and a good Tennessee front? Both teams need this at home at night. This is probably my favorite game of the week in the league, that and Georgia and Florida. And then finally, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone, the SEC Network night game. Tom Hart, Jordan Rodgers, Cole Kubelik. Vanderbilt at Ole Miss. Ole Miss should handle this before a big matchup next Saturday morning at home as Texas A&M comes into town. But the gambling lines again, Texas A&M currently a 14-point favorite at home against South Carolina. Georgia currently a 14.5-point favorite in Jacksonville against Florida. Auburn a 6.5-point favorite as we stand right now at home against Mississippi State this week. Tennessee a 3.5-point favorite at Kentucky. And Ole Miss a 25.5-point favorite at home against Vanderbilt. But before we get you out of here, and again, I appreciate you joining us on this episode. If you like what we're doing, please go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a review on all our podcast outlets and avenues. We're a people show. We're a fan show. If you want me to talk about certain things, post it. But just click like and subscribe. It's free. Just do it if you like it. But before we get you out of here, I wanted to go over the disappointing Week 8 gambling picks. And here they are. Disappointed again. We're like Alabama. We come out slow. You can't see it on the graphic, but I added the over-under 44.5. West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State scored that themselves. Then I took USC -6 against Utah at home. That didn't help. So I'm 0-2. Oklahoma minus 18.5. Oklahoma to hang on, stop a 2-point conversion. I liked them out of the bye week. I thought it was setting up nice. Oklahoma did not play well. They did not play well. Didn't see that. Took an L there. Arkansas, I still would have went with that. I liked where my thought was. Just Arkansas just unbelievably bad on offense. Obviously, they fired Dan Enos. West Virginia minus 3.5. Got played terrible. Didn't even win the game straight up. Michigan, though, was out for revenge with all the investigation stuff. Michigan State has their own investigation stuff. They're terrible. Michigan won this game with ease, easily covered the 24.5 here. I think the final score was, let's look it up real fast. It was like 49-0 or something. Yeah, 49-0. That's my easiest bet of the week. Again, we come on at night. Took the Iowa loss, though. Minnesota won that one straight up, and I was giving up 3.5. BYU, though, won the game straight up, even though they were getting 3.5 at home against Texas Tech. I like that one. That was sneaky, and they won that one. Thank you, Cougars. And the Ole Miss Auburn under. Covered that one as well. That was a good one. Covered that one. Felt good after the third quarter of that one that I would finish there because the team total was what? I had it. What was the team? 49. We had it 50. Yeah, we covered that one with pretty ease there. But again, a 3-7 week, just not going to get it done, guys. We're under 45%. The goal is to be above 55%. Still got a couple of weeks. Lock in with us. We're just hitting a rough streak right now, but we're going to get on track. You got to be loyal. You're a loyal listener. Look, 3 weeks, I apologize. The next 5 are going to be good, though, guys. We're at least going 7-3 in our next 10 for the next 3 weeks. I'm going to go 10 bets a week now. We're going to get this thing cranked out. Last 3 weeks are unacceptable. I need to be better, and we're going to address it. We're going to address it. But again, man, a lot of stuff coming down the wheelhouse. Basketball season right around the corner. We're heading to Week 9 SEC play. Week 10 is going to be phenomenal, but Week 9 is going to have surprises for us too. We covered the Dan Enos firing at Arkansas. Kenny Guyton taking over. What do the Hogs do from there? It's going to be tough to get to a bowl game. We talked about some of these secret scrimmages in college basketball in the SEC. November 6th, first night of college basketball in the SEC. Just 2 weeks from tonight, guys. 2 weeks from tonight. We reviewed all 4 of the SEC matchups. And then, shoot, I'm right here. Just forgot before we get you out of here, briefly mention LSU too. LSU got the 62-0 win over Army. The offense is what it is. They're going to put up points on a lot of people. Is the defense better? Some people are mentioning the defense may be better for LSU. But, I mean, they played Auburn and Army. Do we really know? I mean, Mekhi Wingo, a little nicked up. He didn't play Saturday. Zai Alexander got nicked up in the game, their corner. And then Emory Jones, he was out too, and that had to bring in Lance Hurd, who's going to be a true freshman out there. They need to get healthy for the head to Tuscaloosa. But LSU sitting there, let's actually pull up the LSU schedule before we get out of here, just so we can discuss it. Don't want to leave the Tigers out. I know they didn't play a conference game, but we still talk about the Tigers. So let's bring up LSU right here. Oh, stop sharing it for you for a minute. Pulling them up right here. All right, so perfect. Just want to share it. All right, yeah. So like LSU's coming into the game with 2 losses, 1 conference loss, rolling into the game 6-2, 5-1 in conference. You got at Alabama coming up, then Florida at home, Georgia State, and Texas A&M. That Alabama game is going to be for the West, guys. It's going to be for the West. Ole Miss will be cheering for LSU. Remember, you got 3 teams really competing for it: Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss. Ole Miss with 1 loss to Alabama already, so to win the tiebreaker to get to Atlanta in the last year of the SEC West, they need Bama to lose twice, which, I mean, maybe. I mean, at LSU, at Kentucky, and at Auburn would be for Alabama. So Ole Miss needs them to lose 2 out of the next 3, and Ole Miss is going to have to go on the road and win in Athens. So I don't really see Ole Miss winning the West. I think the winner of this matchup on November 4th in 2 weeks, which is so awesome. The last CBS doubleheader night game is the matchup between Alabama and LSU, the 2 teams that kind of skyrocketed the SEC to what it is now in the past 15 years. Finish it off for us. But I think that's going to be for the West. That's going to be for the SEC West. I feel like LSU could drop another game if they beat Alabama, and then Alabama would win the West because LSU already has a conference loss because they still got Florida and A&M, as you can see. LSU's schedule is more difficult in the back half than Alabama's. But LSU's sitting there. They just had – my main question for them is, has the defense improved? Has the defense improved? Or is it just they played 2 bad offenses left? They got athletes to contain some things at times. But is Matt House fixing anything? Auburn's not a good offense. Army's not. So we'll see. They need to get Mekhi Wingo healthy because they're already thin on the interior of the defensive line. Losing another corner, potentially like Zy Alexander, that would be tough too. We'll see, though. The offense, how will Alabama defend that? A lot of question marks. 2 weeks to talk about it. But again, we covered a lot. Like I said, we reviewed Week 8, talked some secret scrimmages, SEC basketball. 2 weeks from tonight, SEC basketball, college basketball tips off. Rolling into Week 9. Got 5 matchups across the board in the SEC. Got a lot going on, guys. Should be a fun week. Can't wait to see you this upcoming Thursday as we preview all the matchups coming up on Week 9. You have a fantastic week.